Good morning, everybody. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for coming. Good morning. Can everybody hear me? All right, thank you. Thank you all for coming. I just want to introduce the speakers who will be speaking this morning. Superintendent of Schools, Dr. Mark Bedell. Board of Education President, Dr. Joanna Bates-Tobin. County Executive Stuart Pittman, Annapolis Mayor Gavin Buckley, and Fort Meade Garrison Commander Colonel Michael Sapp. Thank you all for being here and supporting this initiative. Also with us, Board Vice President Robert Silkworth is here. Board members Dana Schallheim, Michelle Corkadell, Corinne Frank, and Zachary McGrath. County Council Vice Chair Allison Pickard. I saw her. County Councilwoman Julie Hummer and Councilwoman Lisa Rodvian. State Senator Sarah Elfreth is here. State Delegates Heather Bagnall, Nick Kipke, Stuart Schmidt, and Andrew Pruski. County Health Officer Nilesh Kalyanaraman is here. Thank you, sir. And Annapolis Police Chief Edward Jackson. So thank you all for being here. And with that, I'll turn it over to Dr. Bedell.
Thank you, Mr. Mosier. I wanted to start off by also just acknowledging all of the faculty and staff members who are in here today. Many of them lead a number of the divisions that are going to be responsible for coordinating with our community, coordinating with our schools as we really begin to push forward with this effort. So for those of you who don't know much about my body of work, I spent the last 6 years in the Kansas City Public School District, where on average, we probably had 12 to 15 kids that were being gunned down in their respective communities. I've experienced a lot of trauma, a lot of pain, and a lot of this stuff, they were impediments to our kids being able to really focus on academics in some cases, depending on the dynamic of what they were dealing with in their respective communities. And, you know, coming here, what I've learned just recently with the situation in Newport News, the situations that have occurred here, is that I don't want our school district to be the next school district that's involved in a tragedy. The worst thing that can happen to a superintendent is a parent send their kids to you, expecting them to be educated, expecting you to return them back to them, but just a little bit more smarter, and we don't return them back at all. And in my years of doing this work, we've misplaced kids. They get on school buses that they probably should not have gotten on. They get off at stops that they probably should not have gotten off. We're doing a search for them, and eventually we find them. We generally find them. And I haven't, kids that we've misplaced, I've never lost. But I have experienced student loss in my previous school district. And so the reason why we are here today is in a conversation with our school board a couple of weeks ago, in a conversation with our executive leadership team, and even in my meetings with building principals, I have spoken to them about the fact that school violence is real. These threats that are happening around the country, around the state, around the nation, they are real. And we are not immune from these trends. So if we can go to this next slide, I want you to take a look at the number of students referred for serious offenses. We had a dip in 2018 through 2019 to 2019 to 2020, but we weren't in school past March of that year. Last year, back from COVID, we saw another reduction. But look at this year. We are almost to last year's total in half of this year. So as you look at this weapons slide, the data around weapons possession is even more concerning. We are on pace to double last year's numbers in terms of possession and or use of knives, look-alike guns, and firearms. To be clear, this data is not limited to guns. They make up the minority of these offenses. I also want to be clear that the students represented in this data are in the vast majority. The data I showed you represents about 2.5% of our students. So almost 98% of students are doing the right thing. The weapon data that you see represents 0.1% of our students. But one of these incidents is far too many. That's what today is about. So today, I'm announcing a new campaign called #BePresent. It is just what it sounds like. Community members present in our schools, working in collaboration with our school administrators. Because here's what I know. Safer schools make for stronger communities and vice versa. And when I was a high school principal in the Houston Independent School District, I created an initiative like this, where I reached out to alumni and I asked alumni, could you just show up and be present? Even if it's just to come and help us with bringing kids into the school, helping us during lunchtime, helping us after school, helping to volunteer when we want to do some events for our children. And that community showed up. And as a result, we begin to create this sense of stability within our school that the community wrapped its arms around it. And we took a school at the time that was low performing, according to the Texas accountability system, and we were able to turn that school around with the community. And the thing that I try to tell people is sometimes many of us who've been in education, we watched this movie called Waiting for Superman a few years ago, right? And I tell people, Superman's not coming. Superman is already here. It's within our respective communities, and it's our responsibility to tell the community, hey, we need help. We don't have it all together. And I will assure you, I don't have it all together as a superintendent. But I know that success comes when people feel like they can be a part of the solution. The solution is already here in our respective communities. And I want to show you this video of what happened in one school in Louisiana and what we are modeling this program after. So at this time, Let's play this cattle pairs video.
Violence plagued Southwood High School with more than 20 students being arrested for fighting on campus. A group of dads is now gaining national attention for stepping up to keep the school secure and its students safe. NBC6's Yalisha Gatewood shares more.
A local group of dads come together to bring a new sense of security to Southwood High School, sparking a movement worldwide. They call themselves Dads on Duty. It's not every day you see your dad standing in the foyer, welcoming students as they walk to class. But these dads are on a mission.
Be a dad. That's me. My mission statement is to be a father, to be a dad. That's it.
About 40 dads formed the group after a string of fights broke out at school. And instead of just talking about it, they took action.
We had a bunch of fathers that showed up, and we noticed that when we got here, the environment already started changing. Once the environment started changing, we realized that we were onto something. So we made a commitment to be here every day and just give the kids positive energy. We noticed that the issue was more so male presence at the school, that Southwood needed more support as far as male presence and security presence at the school.
And their efforts are paying off. They say the fights have stopped and the group has been recognized around the world.
We have had already requests from starting chapters throughout the world, to Brazil. They're going to New York this coming week. So yeah, the interest is there.
They're kind of like, brothers, father figures.
Principal Kim Pendleton says it's a blessing.
It is what I've been praying for.
Reporting outside of Southwood High School, Yalisha Gatewood, back to you.
Yalisha, thank you so much. That is good work the fathers are doing.
Thank you, Mr. Mosier. So this is just an example of what could be in our county. And it is not just limited to male role models. It's not limited to males as a whole. We also know, and I say this all the time, I've done 17 or 16 listening and learning tours, and I can count generally on two hands how many of the people who are in attendance look like me or are males, right? Our moms work just like I work, and I'm using myself as an example. I'm a superintendent, but I don't generally show up for PTO meetings. I generally don't volunteer. My wife does all of that stuff and maintained a full-time job during the time that we were in Houston. And I guess the point that I'm making is, like, it's going to require all of us to come together. Here's what I want to make sure I leave with our media and people who are in attendance. To be clear, our volunteers won't be asked to do security or discipline. We just want them to be present. We want to build relationships. We want to form bonds. Just be here, and it's okay. Crack some jokes, shake some hands, check on people, ask them how they're doing, and those things will go a long way. We will begin the program later this month after we finalize protocols for volunteers. This is about all of us. We all need to be in this together. And with that, I'll ask Dr. Tobin to say a few words.
Good morning. Thank you, Dr. Bedell, for taking a proactive approach to involving every partner in our county with our schools and our students as we face this critical challenge of keeping our students safe in school. Make no mistake, our parents, families, and communities are our partners. As I said at the community conversation we hosted at Severna Park High School last week, our students and our schools are facing challenges that involve our entire community. And we, as a school system, cannot address them alone. We need your help. What is more, our students need to know that the adults in their community care about them and stand ready to support them, and not just when things go wrong. I am asking everyone who is listening to consider being a part of this initiative. Please know that it will not take an exorbitant amount of time, but that with a small investment of your time, you stand to reap huge rewards in many ways. You do not need a crystal ball to see the future of our community. You need only to spend time in a school. Our students are our future. But here is the most important part: that future is not fixed because our children are growing and learning and changing every day, mainly through what they absorb from the actions and the words of the adults around them. Please consider being a part of that growth, bringing your care, attention, and skills to our students. If you are willing to partner with us and give us just a small amount of your time, you have a chance to help shape the best possible future for all of us. Thank you.
I'm Stuart Pittman, the Anne Arundel County Executive, and I am here as an ally to support what you're doing. I meet with Dr. Bedell every month, and he told me that this was in the works, and my reaction was that, wow, we're really making progress in Anne Arundel County. There was a time when even our mental health crisis response folks could not get into schools when there was a crisis because our schools were like fortresses with walls separated from the community. Parents would send their kids in and they wondered what was going on inside. The kids on the inside just had the teachers and one SRO. I have to commend our police department's SRO program because it's a model around the state, and it's been controversial. But the way I look at it now, and the way I've learned that the students look at it, is so there's a cop in the school. We like them. It's part of the community. Now we're going to have adults in the school who aren't teachers and who aren't working for government. They are there just to be helpful. And to me, that is the bringing together of community and schools that we have so desperately needed. And we have done work at county level. We have our gun violence intervention team through our Department of Health, because gun violence is a health crisis, and we have Moms Demand Action here, and we know we have to make sure that the guns that are in homes are secured so students don't pick them up and bring them to school. We have our joint mental health agency task force with the school system and Adrian Mickler from our mental health agency that have finally started to figure out ways to provide more services to these kids in mental health. And we have our Opportunity Gap Commission. We're doing a lot of joint work between all of government agencies and the school system now, but knowing that the community will literally be in the hallways of our schools, to me, is a no-brainer, long time coming, and I have great belief that this will actually make some progress, and our kids will feel good about it and safer.
So I just want to thank Dr. Bedell for giving me one more chance to embarrass my son at Annapolis High School before he graduates. For some reason, my son doesn't think his dad's cool. I'm going to prove him wrong when I'm in the hallway. So thank you for that introduction. I'm Mayor Gavin Buckley, but more important than that, my greatest job is being a dad. I appreciate Superintendent Bedell spelling out why county schools are implementing this program. And I believe many parents will want to be involved in a program like this. Parents like me would be happy to spend an hour a week at their child's school, greeting kids, giving high fives, just being a familiar face. Dr. Bedell has said this program isn't about going in and breaking up fights or being responsible for preventing violence. This is about being a positive force in the lives of our young people. Schools are a crossroads where students interact in very close proximity to one another, and where problems and issues that don't get resolved can turn ugly. We can show students through positive interaction that there are other ways to resolve conflicts. Students don't care how much we know, they know how much we care. And this program is going to show that we really do care about them. I know that great schools make for great communities. We also know that we can't have great communities without great schools. Dr. Bedell knows that parental involvement can help schools be successful. He saw this program in Louisiana and said, there is no reason why we can't do this at every school in Anne Arundel County. And I agree. It is my job as mayor. I meet parents and caregivers from all over Annapolis. Without exception, there is one thing they all want. It's a safe environment for their children, safety at home, safety on the way to and from school, safety at camps, at sports programs, and safety at school. In our City Run Rex program, we encourage parents to be there for their children. We don't see hesitation for them to show up to soccer matches, to be on sidelines at basketball tournaments, at kickboxing classes, or dance recitals. But schools can seem closed off from that same level of involvement. I thank Dr. Bedell for his willingness to open schools up, to launch this program for a new era of involvement in school safety. We are a community of people who care. I know that Chief Jackson knows that. Thank you, Chief. Dr. Bedell knows that. We can all be parents in the education of our students and for the betterment of our schools. I thank all the parents who I know are going to step up today. Thank you.
So for those of you who may be wondering, I'm Colonel Michael Sapp, the Garrison Commander at Fort George G. Meade. And I thank you, Dr. Bedell, for bringing us together so we can address this serious issue. And I thank you to the community partners, both behind me and in front of me, who see Fort Meade as a part of that strong partnership. For as we know, strong partnership is the best way to ensure safety and a successful education and future opportunities for our students. We are excited to be a part of this countywide initiative, and though the footprint of Fort Meade is relatively small in size, it is indeed expansive in its scope. As only being in command for 6 months so far, I'm still learning just how much of our interests lie beyond the fence line. As we've heard before, it is the largest employer in the county and in the state of Maryland. And as a garrison commander, I get the opportunity to integrate the organizations, the personnel, and some of the resources across the installation and throughout the community around us. For as we know, our community that works and resides on Fort Meade has interest well beyond the borders and throughout the state. And so with the workforce, we look at ways that we can operate and integrate in the schools and build on our ongoing efforts, such as the Friends of Meade Committee, and find new ways that Fort Meade can continue to be present. Thank you.
So before we open it up for questions from the media, I do want to thank all of our speakers, and I hope that this just shows everyone around the unity that exists within this county and how we're going to make sure that we bridge any pre-existing gaps that may have been in place. I hope that people understand that these are community schools, and at the end of the day, the community schools belong to the community of which it resides within. People need to understand that superintendents come and go, school boards change, principals come and go, faculty and staff come and go. But the one constant is the community that surrounds each of our buildings. That is why it is critical that we do our part to open up our doors, extend our arms, and create a welcoming environment that allows for everybody to feel that they can make a difference. And what I will tell you, if a kid is coming to school and they're worried about safety, whether it's from bullying or whether it's from the community factors, it will continue to be an impediment to them achieving their full academic potential, because you have basic needs that simply aren't being met in the form of safety and a sense of belonging. And I say this all the time, test scores, academic outcomes, all of those things take a negative hit when we do not create the environments that allows for learning to flourish. That's what this is all about, creating a barrier-free learning environment for people, for our kids. And that can be done through an initiative like this. We will now open it up for any questions that our media may have.
Dr. Bedell, can you help us understand some of the logistics? Do you want this in every school in the county, or how many parents per school, or what do you think?
Yeah, I think it's a great question. The dynamics from school to school varies. There may be some schools where everything is, they probably already have a system and they probably already have supports and they're well oiled, right? But there are schools where we know we need the support. You probably will find this happening more at a number of our secondary schools rather than elementary schools, but there will be some elementary schools where we already have these kind of supports in place. You know, I'll use Georgetown. Is it Georgetown East? Right around the corner. That's an example of a school where I've seen a number of initiatives over there already in place working with the community. So we just want to make sure that we're extending it out across the county, that there's a way that we can get out here and get help, and just understand, like, schools can't do it alone. We don't have to do this alone. Probably part of the problem is that I've seen as an educator over my years, there's this embarrassment to admit when we don't have it all together. And I don't lead like that. I'm because if I'm not able to tell you where we're hurting, how will you ever be able to help? Right? And that's what I'm doing. I'm putting a call out for help because I don't want our school district to be the next one on national news because of situations that are occurring all around the country.
I assume they're volunteers. Would they report to the school, to the SRO, or how would you?
Yeah, I think logistically, this will be where they'll probably be working directly with a community liaison and a building administrator that will probably be assigned to work with them. So when I had the program set up, I had an assistant principal that was really responsible for coordinating. The other thing that we'll do from central office, we have our student supports division, and several of those staff members are in here. We will make sure that we're working with the school district, with each of our schools, to help coordinate. So even as you think about background checks, you can't have anybody just come onto your campus. We will pay for the background checks so that we can make sure that people, that there's clearance so that there aren't any issues occurred. And then, of course, that vetting with that building administrator will be critical because you want to make sure that you know who's coming to help support you. Our hope is that the vast majority of people who will volunteer are parents of children that are in these schools, right? And it could be alumni, but really more so getting some of our parents that already have a connection with the school, already have a connection with other kids in the neighborhood to show up.
With this iteration and other districts that you've already done, what problems did it propose? Did anything come up that was kind of negative to this?
No, I mean, I could tell you I had no problems when I did it as a high school principal. When we had people supporting us in Kansas City, it was more so through a mentoring model that we had. And like I said, because we vetted everybody thoroughly, I don't have any negative things to report to you. And I think you can go back and look at the Kansas City Star. There's been nothing negatively reported on an initiative like this during my 6 years there.
Well, hey, Colonel, I guess most recently it was a case with a 12-year-old with a gun in your school. And I assume this kind of piqued that interest a lot. Talk to us about that situation and how this could maybe been prevented.
So what I'll say is that we've had many opportunities that we've been trying to rebuild some of the programs that had existed before COVID. And as a result of DOD-wide, how we reshifted a lot of focus, that the school liaison is one of those where I think we pulled back too far. And so now we have Miss Meredith McCandless on board, and she is getting us back into the schools. From a security standpoint, we have access controls, we have those other measures in place. And through the coordination and partnership that we have with the Anne Arundel County Police Department, we were prepared for responsive measures if need be. But just to your point, those proactive measures, getting more partners in education is the program in particular that we're standing back up to help provide more model adults in the schools.
Question. You mentioned that people aren't going to be, I guess, intervening either in violence or they're not looking for weapons. I guess, can you speak to what they will be doing, or if they encounter a situation like a weapon or a fight, what they should be doing in those situations?
Yeah, generally what will end up happening is you have a coordination that will happen at each of our schools. So for instance, when I did this as a high school principal, people had radios, people were able to call into an administrator. That's the role of the administrator, right? At the end of the day, I tell people sometimes get things mixed up around what the roles are. So I sit on the National Association of the School Resource Officer Board. And even sometimes in how we use our officers, we put them in a bad position when there are things that they shouldn't be doing that are administratively, you're certified as an administrator to handle certain things. So making sure that everybody understand their roles, but no, their job is not to be there to discipline. That's why our schools in most cases are staffed appropriately from an administrator to student ratio to make sure that we're addressing those things. But I think what we're trying to create with this initiative is just presence. Presence changes everything. You saw that on that video. Those gentlemen aren't going into Caddo Parish schools and they're out disciplining kids. They're there just to help create a sense of calmness and to let the kids know, hey, there are adults here. We have our eyes on things. We're here. You can feel safe about coming to school every day. And if there are problems, then those problems are relayed to a certified administrator that will address it.
Can you speak to what, if any, training these volunteers might be going through when they come to?
So I would tell you at this point, that's part of the conversation we'll continue to have around what that looks like. I shared this with my team the other day. So from a mentoring standpoint, and I believe our district actually does have a training model. I'm not well versed enough to speak to it, but I know even when we did mentoring, there was a thorough training that everybody went through in my previous school district. I would say almost a 4-hour training that they went through in order to understand how to properly mentor. And then if a certain situation occurs, here's how you should handle it. Here's who you should talk to. We don't want to have kids open up and then we have a can of worms and those worms are going all over the place because we didn't know what to do with the situation because of that relationship. So we do have a model. I can't speak to it in an articulate way, so I'm not, but there will be training that people will go through.
Sorry, I have one more. Obviously, this will be around the school day, and you mentioned you wanting to get parents more involved. I was just wondering if you had any way to combat, I guess parents work during the day, so the numbers and the need, I assume, would be great. Do you have any idea or any way to sort of help people or incentivize them coming to you?
Well, I would say it doesn't necessarily have to happen actually during the school day. It could for people who are available. So one initiative we did in Kansas City, we had what was called lunch buddies. So people just showed up during their lunch period and they spent time at the school meeting with kids in the cafeteria. That's one way to do it. The other way to do it is to tell people, hey, if we can just get help from you before school and after school as we're exiting kids out, right? That may be a way that we could work with people. Generally, what you will have is for people who don't work, it's easier for them to show up during the day, right? Whether that's alumni, whether that's retired educators, whether it's retired community members. And so we think that depending on our individual relationships with our community at large, will really determine what those particular shifts look like and who you can get into your schools. It's going to look different from school to school.
Dr. Goodell, how would you plan on what about parents who wouldn't necessarily feel comfortable with their child around a stranger? How would you address those concerns?
Yeah, I think it's ultimately being able to assure people that folks have gone through a background check. I mean, that happens now. How many people actually come onto campuses right now? And I mean, without even us doing this initiative, that is a common practice that's been going on since I've been in education for 23 years. So I think ultimately that's just a matter of us having a conversation with that parent and helping them to understand that, these people have been vetted. These people were working directly with the administration. If it is a problem, then we'll address it. I mean, ultimately, we'll address it. And if we have to remove it, and that has happened in the past where we've said, hey, you cannot be on our campus for whatever reason, whatever occurred, that happens. We will take action on that.
Any other questions? Thanks, everybody.
All right. Thank you all.